Here's a quick tutorial on how I painted my Grey Knight Purgator unit. For any beginners out there just getting started with Grey Knights, this is my first unit. So I started off with a generous dry brush of lead belcher all over the model. Try and avoid the bolter if you can. I got a little bit on there, but not to worry because we're going to come back over that later. Next, I washed the whole thing in Dragonoff Nightshade. This is meant to give it a bit of a bluish hue. I couldn't really see that after it had dried, but it did darken the whole thing, which is why after the Dragonoff Nightshade has dried, followed it up with another light dry brush, a lot lighter than the first one, just to brighten the model up, and then follow that up with Grey Knight's Steel, which is a lot bluer than Dragonoff Nightshade. It's obviously a grey, but it's got a bit of a blue hue. And dry brushing, just using a bit of kitchen roll to try and get the majority of the paint off before I start putting it on the model. Now, as you'll see here, that brightened the whole thing up and it's looking a lot more silver and a lot more like what you'd expect from a Grey Knight. That's 4 layers of paint so far, with the initial layer of lead belcher, Dragonoff Nightshade, another layer of lead belcher, and then the Grey Knight Steel. Next is Stormhost Silver, which we're just going to use to highlight some of the edges. So I put it on the edges of the helmet, on the pauldrons, on the tops of the knees, and it should just brighten up quite subtly, but just brighten up the whole thing. Next, for the details, we used Retributor Armour and Balthazar Gold, using Retributor Armour for the lighter details like the lettering, the swords, and then Balthazar Gold for some of the darker areas like the back panels on some of the armour and the lettering. So Balthazar Gold isn't on here yet, but you'll see it now where I've placed it on the model. For the rest of the details, I used Corn Red and Ushabti Bone. This is for the purity seals and the pages. In some tutorials, I've seen people use lighter shades of red for the purity seals just to make them pop a bit more. So if you've got those reds available, feel free to do so. I also used Retributor Gold on the sword details, as well as using Corn Red on the handle. It's quite similar to what I could see on the box, and it looks pretty good so far. I then used these 2 colours for the eyes. The white, or the grey rather, is just a small dot towards the inner side of the eyes. And then for the rest of the details, Agrax Earthshade, another wash only over the details like the pages and the purity seals and the lettering, just to give it a bit of depth. I then used a combination of these 4 colours for the power sword. I didn't use so much of the Grey Knight Steel, just a small amount for the darker areas. I primarily used Calidor Sky for the kind of base coat, and then used the lighter 2 colours just to fill in and add some shading. I used quite a lot of tips and tricks from a channel called One Last Blade, so I'll post the link to his video in the description of this video. So please do go and check that guy's videos out because they're super useful, and I definitely wouldn't have been able to paint this without them. But that's all for now. I hope you liked this short tutorial, and I'll see you in the next one.